Welcome to the Two Grumpy Bastards podcast, where feelings aren't felt and snowflakes melt. Buckle up, it's gonna be a bumpy ride.
They painted over ants.
Record on this. All right, welcome to the Two Grumpy Bastards podcast. We're coming at you on a Sunday afternoon. I'm trying to watch the Masters in the background here, Russ, but my internet connection is so bad that I can't do that and do a podcast with you at the same time over Zoom. So,
why would you choose to voluntarily watch golf?
I love watching golf. It's so relaxing.
Well, yeah, it's designed to help you take a nap, but that's about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's kind of what I'm into. Back in the day, I'd love to have a nice little adult beverage and watch some golf, and it's very relaxing. And it's always someplace beautiful and sunny, which it's been raining for about 20 hours straight here where I'm at in Washington State, and I think we're flooded in again. And I left my back window down in the Jeep last night, so that should be fun.
Awesome. Yeah, it was like 45 degrees here 2 days ago, and now it's 80.
God, yeah. We had one day, it was Thursday, when the Hound and I went and played along the beach and the water in Tacoma and some other places, and it was 68, almost 70 degrees, and then next day I got up and it's 34 and just pissing rain again here.
Yeah, it's going to happen to us this next week as well.
Yeah, I'm getting tired of it. And then, of course, where I chose to live here for a bit is one of the worst floodplains in all of Western Washington out here. And
awesome.
Yeah. So it gets nasty. The ground never quite gets dry out here. It's pretty great.
For all those folks out there in podcast land, I have changed my glasses. You'll have to let me know if I'm as aggressive as I once was.
You don't look nearly as aggressive.
Although I can change, for those of you on YouTube, I can change my contrast by raising my hands and lowering my hands. I have no idea why I do that.
I am not really getting that. I guess I'd have to see where your camera's set up and stuff like that.
Well, I'm guessing my skin is so white, it's like reflecting all light from the universe.
You kind of do look like, when I was a kid, my mom bought me one of those really cool like models at a garage sale for like 25 cents where it was the human body and it was clear and you could see all the organs and stuff like that.
Hey,
I love
just
that.
because I had a starring role in Powder, that's no need to. By the way, I also, hey, Coop, I want to thank you for when you put up our advertisement on Facebook. I love how you pick out pictures that are kind of the same way that you pick out emails to read. They make you look like the Viking god, and I'm the one that's going here going like this.
Wait till you see. Well, just to let everybody know too, did another podcast yesterday. We are adding a podcast to our podcast family. Ex-endless ranter, Jane Fulton, our friend, great gal. We did a podcast which we named Beauty and the Bastard. And I picked a equally...
Of course, Coop says if anyone else calls her bastard, he'll rip their lungs out.
That's right. I picked an equally maybe not as flattering photo for her too, so we'll see what she says about that.
Oh, jeez. All right, I'm gonna have to figure out how to get access to this stuff to post stuff because, jeez. It's bad enough I look like a psychopath when I try to smile anyway. You just make it a lot worse.
I'd look like a pudgy asshole, so it's okay. I think
you can make yourself look somewhat flattering. I don't look flattering very much to begin with, and because the way my mouth moves, and the way that I smile when I try to smile intentionally, I come across as a psychopath or someone who is a touch slow.
A little spectrum-y?
A little bit.
Yes. Yeah, a little spectrum-y. Nah, you're fine, man. No, it's fun. It's all good fun. We'll get on with the podcast. I wanted to talk to you about a story that's been in the news quite a bit up here, and I know you've heard of it too, but there is a school district in Washington State. It's part of Tacoma. It's southern Tacoma. It's called Clover Park. A lot of folks up here know where that's at. Just north of where Fort Lewis and McChord Air Force Base, because I refuse still to say JBLM, Joint Base Lewis McChord. I hate that shit. Very high population of soldiers, kids. I actually know a few people that teach there. A couple of my former buddies, I guess. I don't stay in contact with them anymore. Knew them pretty well. They work on the junior high side, so I do know quite a bit about the school district, and I lived in the area there quite a bit. Population there, it's mostly minority, which is a strange word to use these days. I think 28% of the population is white. kind of stands to reason. There's a high population of people of color in the military, particularly the Army and stuff like that. So it stands to reason. Some pretty notable athletes came out of there in the day, including Javon Curse's the Freak's nephew, Jermaine, who was a Husky. So I'm very familiar with it. What's going on, though, and there's a bunch of articles. I read the one from Jason Rants.
Love Jason Rants.
Yeah, he's a lot of you may have seen him doing little guest spots on kind of an odd-looking fellow, kind of an intense-looking fellow. But he'll pop
Very
up
intelligent.
he's very smart, and he's got a podcast. And I'll tell you what, I can't keep up with his podcast because he puts out so much material and it's so rapid fire. He must have a very good assistant or two, or he's just that brilliant because he's a gay male who a very conservative guy, a little bit Ben Shapiro-y, I think, as far as his intellect and his ability to kind of cover a lot of ground.
He talks slower.
He talks slower, definitely, but yeah. So he's got a. I don't listen to his talk show. I haven't listened to a radio talk show in ages, but he's on The Truth up here in Seattle. Really, really, really guns for the woke and the far left policies in the Seattle, Tacoma, Western Washington area. He's very good. Anyway, so he wrote a decent article out there on mynorthwest.com, and I want to talk to you about it because basically, just to roll it up, what the school board has voted to do is institute policies for discipline equity. And if you read between the lines and read some of it, there's a 6-page policy. I skimmed it. I didn't read the entire thing. But basically taking ethnicity into account when determining disciplinary action towards students. And a couple of the school board members, I think it was a 3-2 vote, I think a couple of school board members came right out and said that, the one is just the most idiotic thing I've ever heard, example I've ever heard. One of the school board members said, well, of course it's not fair to punish a white student and a Mexican or a black student the same because of their cultural differences and their family backgrounds. Maybe this kid, it's okay to steal a piece of pizza when he's at home. So why would we want to punish that kid just as much as the white kid if they stole a piece of pizza from the cafeteria?
Yeah, that was Anthony Velez that made that rather stupid analogy.
Yeah, it's one of the worst analogies I've ever heard in my life. So we talk a lot about this in the anti-woke movement. Equality and equity are not the same thing. Trying to establish as this cliche goes, a level playing field for people is not what equity is. Equity is ensuring outcome. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
not providing opportunity, but ensuring outcome. This is an example of equity, of taking something away from one group and giving another group special permissions, special privileges, all that kind of thing. So this is no shit. The school board up there did vote to take into account ethnicity and race for disciplinary policies. I'm not a black and white guy when it comes to things. I'm a gray area guy. So if you have a kid from a troubled household, whatever color that kid is, you're gonna look at that kid a little bit differently, I think. Maybe try to help that kid a little more than you would otherwise. But that has to be the soft science. There can't be. It's the most racist thing I've heard of in ages, and we could go on and talk about this forever. I'll give you the floor here, but this is just disgusting. I don't have kids in school, so a lot of people, well, you don't have a dog in the fight. Well, actually, I do. It's America, and when I see this woke attitude that has infested, I don't really think I know a single teacher. I grew up with a lot of people that became teachers, and I'm just going to be blunt. If some of them listen to the podcast, I'm sorry to say this, but most of them did that. Went to become teachers because it was a fairly easy profession and a fairly easy major and graduate degree to get through. This is out of the horse's mouth, Hey, I only have to work 180 days a year, Yeah, this is a great profession. When I grew up, I thought my teachers were gods. I'll be honest with you. Most of them. There was a couple that I didn't really hold in very high esteem, but most of them I really did. That's a different generation. Most of that generation is in their 80s. That were my teachers. That kind of thing. Totally different generation, totally different. I always thought the teachers dressed terrible because they were really poor. And a lot of the teachers I knew actually got summer jobs, driving truck or whatever to help supplement the income, or they were married to another teacher. I can tell you two of the guys that I know that are in the Clover Park School District are junior high teachers and make north of $130K a year. It's just public knowledge. You can look it up anywhere, any teacher in Washington State in a database and see exactly what they make because it's a government job. Um, so this has gone so far now. I guess since masks aren't in vogue and they can't beat up the kids with the masking policy as much now. Now they're going after things like, hey, we're going to determine your punishment level based on your skin color. It's so insane that I don't even know how to analyze it. That anybody would even have had the idea to go through this. Like I said, it's one thing to be, informal and subjective when you're in charge, like you're a principal or you're a deputy superintendent and you're making decisions based on students. To have some of that gray area in there, that's what we all do all the time, making decisions based on that. But to actually have a hardcore policy that basically says, hey, the 28% of you in this school, if you do exactly the same thing that your buddy over there does, based on your skin color, we're going to punish you harsher. And that's reality. That's not hyperbole. Anybody wants to read the policy, it's out there.
So I do want to address a couple of points. First, when folks say that you have no dog in this fight, that's garbage, because these students are going to be in the real world, making real world decisions, both from a business standpoint and a political standpoint at some point. So part of the reason we have public education to begin with is the social contract theory that we all have a dog in the fight, because there is societal good to having an educated population. So if you say I don't have a dog in the fight, great, then don't make me pay taxes for the public schools. Okay, I pay taxes. If I'm paying for something, I have a stake in it. If I have to live in a society that is governed or in some way overseen by people that system produces, then I have a dog in that fight.
Yeah.
So that's not just, you don't have a kid, so you don't have a say. That's bullshit. I attribute the same way as I do when people say you're not a soldier, so you shouldn't be able to talk about foreign policy. That's not the way. That's not the way the country works.
That's lunacy.
Yeah. Now it's interesting. We've gotten so far away from Martin Luther King's vision of being judged by the content of your character rather than the color of your skin.
Mm-hmm.
You're right there. The choice of the word equity was deliberate because it sounds so much like equality.
Right.
And it is designed to force people into a corner where they don't feel comfortable speaking out against it, because then they won't be seen as being against equality. I'm all for equality of opportunity. I am not for equality of outcome, because a whole bunch of things go into outcome. I am 5'7.5" on a good day. I weigh about 180-ish pounds. I am not very coordinated. I have the same opportunity as anybody to go to the NBA, but I was never going to make it because my skills, my physical attributes just weren't there. And that's the reality of life, is some people have talents in some areas and some don't. But so getting the equality of opportunity is one thing. And even that, we understand there's going to be some variance. A kid who grows up in Westchester, New York, going to a private school, and his parents are a high-powered attorney and a finance broker, yeah, it's going to have some better opportunities. I get that. But that doesn't mean that you need to force outcomes, because outcomes are not only affected by how you are born, but by the choices you make during life. So that's got to be part of it. Now, this policy, while I understand the so-called compassion behind it, it is not a compassionate policy, because it's going to set these kids up for failure when they become adults.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to develop discipline. They are not going to understand the consequences of actions. And the police, the court systems, a business that is hiring them is not going to care when they make a mistake of some kind. Like, and I don't mean just a regular mistake, but it's like, hey, I'm a little bit short in cash tonight to be able to eat. I need to take a few bucks out of the register. Their boss and the police are not going to overlook that. Additionally, I don't know that this school board really gave a lot of thought to the litigation they're opening themselves up to. If I was the parent of a child who got punished differently than someone else based on the color of my child's skin, I feel fairly sure that there is a case to be made under the 1964 Civil Rights Act for discrimination.
Sure.
I would be, matter of fact, if I had a child in that school system, I would be talking to a lawyer right now and making that case. While I agree with you, Coop, there needs to be some there's always should be some subjectivity in
Of
our
course.
disciplinary actions. But the two most predominant factors, in my opinion, need to be one, the offense, how egregious is the offense? And two, what is the past record of someone committing the offense?
Right.
Was this a one-time deal where, somebody, I don't know, they were at a friend's house, they had a beer and they drove home and they'd never done it before and we don't want to destroy their lives? Or is this somebody that habitually does stuff and, this is their fifth or sixth offense? And it's going to take, there's a reason why we have graduated levels of punishment in our criminal justice system. And I understand school discipline is different than the criminal justice system to an extent. I understand that. But we are trying to prepare these children for life in society, for life in the real world. You talked about teachers and their wokeness. Now, those who know me, especially those who know me on Facebook, know that I am not a big fan of the public education system. While there are teachers I adore, there are a lot of teachers, quite frankly, that I have a problem with. Look, I get teaching can be a hard profession in terms of time involved, in terms of sometimes the commitments you make, especially during the school year. I completely understand that. But I have a problem, first of all, with this martyrdom complex that a lot of teachers have, thinking themselves above society, because look at the sacrifice I put in. Well, look, lots of people put in sacrifices, okay? That guy who's working, the garbage shift for the city and is working every day of the year except for paid federal holidays, or the guy down at the bank who's working, 10 hours a day and does not get a day off except for bank holidays, doesn't get the summers off, doesn't have as good a healthcare plan or job security. Everybody puts stuff in, okay? So the martyrdom kind of gets on my nerves, especially when coupled with the fact that you have to screw up in a major, major way to get fired as a teacher. It's determined by seniority and governmental contract status, vice your competence for the job. Since we're not allowed to fire a lot of teachers, that's how mediocrity comes in. And the wokeness of teachers comes from several sources. One, it comes from, and I'm going to piss people off when I say this, and I get it, but it's reality. It comes from the teaching of knowledge versus the application of knowledge. There is an old saying, I don't completely agree with it, but I understand it. It says, those who can do, those who can't teach. Okay. And I've taught in the past at a couple of different levels. I've taught at university undergraduate level. I have taught at graduate level stuff. I get some of the commitment, but, there is a difference between teaching, leadership or teaching how to evaluate someone versus actually doing it. And so I wonder how much of going into teaching is commitment to future generations and how much is trepidation about applying skills outside of an educational environment that maybe folks don't feel up to. And I know that's going to vary from person to person and teacher to teacher. There's going to be people who are in there because they just love it and they are great at it. But there are going to be people who are in teaching because they cannot make it outside of an educational environment. I've had this, look, we could do an entire podcast on what I would do to fix the public education system. I've had conversations with a dozen or more people over social media in the last 3 weeks about my disdain for public education. A couple of them are teachers, a couple of them are principals, both at the middle school and high school level. We could do an entire podcast on that, but teachers going in now, they're insulated from so much, so they can push a lot of political propaganda. When I was in school, 3 of my teachers, I knew what their politics were. One, because it was a U.S. history course and debate and conversation was part of the course. Mm-hmm. One of them was a foreign language teacher who I would go over. We as a class would go over to her house like a couple times a semester to have dinner, because I very stupidly studied French instead of Spanish because I wanted to be different. But we'd go over and have like a French meal and try and talk in French. And she would discuss some stuff in her home. And then one was the school club's advisor who tried to keep the young Republicans out of high school because she was a hardcore Democrat. And this was in the late 80s, early 90s.
Wow.
And we got past that. But in my entire academic career, I must have had, 36 different teachers, both, from regular through elementary school to teachers that I took. I'm probably more than that, probably 50 or 60. Most of them, I had no idea what their politics were. I had no idea what their private lives were. You'd say, hey, so what's going on with your husband or your wife? And the standard response was, that's my private life. It's none of your business. Now, some of the wokeness in school, some of this stuff that you're talking about, whether it is the disciplinary discrepancies, whether it is differences in grading standards, whether it is some political indoctrination for transgenderism or whatever, I do wonder how much comes from the teachers themselves and how much comes from teachers who go along to get along. Some folks may be in there because if they speak out against prevailing wisdom, they're either going to be ostracized or lose their jobs. And that's a very real aspect of some of this. I think a lot of folks, much like actors or comedians, you can kind of tell the more centrist or conservative ones by the ones who keep their mouths shut, the ones who don't talk up as much. But policies like this one in the Cloverfield district are harming students. Additionally, it also shows the disparity between the mindsets of a conservative and a liberal, or a leftist, maybe would be a better term.
Yeah.
Because most conservative or libertarian or even centrists, what we usually want is just to go live our lives, be left alone. What I see out of a lot of leftists is they won't let that happen. They want to be involved, and they're forcing a pushback. They're forcing people who don't want to get involved to get involved. We've got stuff going on Cloverfield for, like you said, it's a near Fort Lewis, which is a much more conservative area. But if you look across the country, look to what just happened in Waukesha up in Wisconsin recently, very blue area, had 3 open school board seats, just elected Republicans to all of them. Now, I'm not here to shill for the Republican Party. The Republican Party there is a stand-in for either conservatives or folks who have not gone completely insane on some of the woke stuff. I don't know. Do you want to let folks know what happened in San Francisco recently?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Their recall election with the board members in San Francisco, based on a lot of the leftist CRT, critical race theory, a lot of the sex education stuff that was being crammed down these kids' throats.
Renaming buildings instead of teaching kids.
Exactly. Yeah. It was a fucking junk show down there. Trying to rename high schools that were named after Abraham Lincoln and George Washington and stuff like that, being concerned about that during the height of the epidemic. Oh, by the way, so that pissed a lot of parents off. And you're talking the most liberal spot in the world. And they recalled 3 school board members. Was it 3? It was 2 or 3? 3.
I think it was 2. But to put it in perspective, the recalls were not particularly close.
No, my God, no.
Were recalled by like 70%.
It wasn't like the presidential election. It was like, I think one of them was like 83% of people.
Yeah, it was not particularly close. I know both of them were above 70% that came down on the in favor of recall side.
And by definition, these parents that did that these are progressive people. I would assume 9 out of 10 of these people are fairly progressive in their political views.
They would think that a Republican or conservative, if they walked in sunlight, would burst into flames.
Right. Well, they would want a libertarian like me to burst into flames, but that would be a really hot heat. That'd be a lot of good belly fat keeping that fucker hot. But no, yeah. So that's astonishing. I know one of your favorite fellas in the political scene right now, the Virginia governor. That was 100% based on public school policies. How he got elected. That it was 100%, and Virginia is not a red state. Everybody, it is not a red state. What was it, like 68% in Biden during the last presidential election or something like that?
I don't think it was quite that much, but it hasn't gone.
It was very high. It was very high.
It hasn't gone red since 2004. The last Senate election that was even close was 2006, when George Allen made the infamous and very stupid macaca remark, and then he lost. I don't remember who won. I don't remember the Democrat that won.
I can't remember either.
It might have been Warner, but I'm not positive. Regardless, Virginia is not a blue state, but one of the things that happened was Terry McAuliffe, who had been the governor there before, he he said the quiet part out loud. One of the things about politics when you're running for office make it easy to vote for yourself and hard to vote for your opponent. Well, Terry McAuliffe during one of the debates flat out said parents should not have a say in the curriculum that's being taught at their schools. And a lot of parents, especially a lot of suburban moms,
It's so
were like,
insane.
what are you talking about? That's my child. And this is a
Right.
conversation I've had with multiple teachers is look, you can care deeply about a lot of stuff, but you do not love my child as not even more, but as much as I do. They're going to be in your classroom for about 8 hours for 180 days a year, and then they're moving on. And they, maybe you'll kind of keep track of them as they get through school. If you're lucky, half a dozen of them will let you know how they're doing when they're young adults, and then you'll never hear from them again. Parents will look after their children for the rest of their lives. Now, I'm not talking about helicoptering, but did you ever read the book Shit My Dad Says?
Yeah, I used to follow that on back when Twitter wasn't the moral wasteland that it is now. I used to follow that guy.
Well, during part of that book, the author went to Mexico, and his parents have a preternatural fear of Mexico. They found out he was in Mexico. He comes back, and his dad like starts yelling at him and all this other stuff, and it ends up becoming like this warm moment where they hug. And the dad finally says, "Look, right here, be careful what you stick your thing into, because this right here, this level of worry, it never goes away. No matter how old your children get, you will always worry about your children. You will love your children more than anybody else, whether it's a teacher, whether it is a friend, anything." And look, I'm not trying to insult folks out there, and Coop, I'm not trying to insult you when I say this, but
But you're going to anyway.
honest to God, I did not understand it until I had children. You can't. It's like going to combat. You can describe it, but you can't fully grasp the feeling until you have children.
That doesn't offend me. I mean, everybody knows what a fool I am for that four-legged kid of mine. And
Yeah.
I woke up this morning, and I woke up at midnight and then didn't get back to sleep till 7. And I slept for 10 minutes, but then that's another story. That's pretty much every night. But I just look at that dog and I ache. I love that dog so fucking much, and we spend a few minutes a day not together when he goes outside and lays in the sun. So I can just imagine that times a million. And I just remember I was very close to my mother, as you know, and losing her was devastating. Absolutely devastating. She was the love of my life, and I know I could tangibly feel how much my mom loved me. And you look back at stuff and you go, fuck, I should have said this, or I should have said that, but my mom knew I loved her too. And I think that's part of being a parent, is that even when your kids are fuckheads like I was and putting her and Ken through hell later in life, I knew that love was there, and she knew it too.
I think, look, this is going to sound sappy. This is going to annoy the atheists in the audience. Tough shit. My personal feeling on one of the reasons why God wanted us to become parents was so that we could have the smallest amount of understanding of his love for us. That's part of the parental relationship, is if you can understand the love you have for your children, you have an inkling of what God's love for you is like. Yeah. And I'm not trying to get religious and stuff, but that there are purposes to everything that happens, and I think that's a purpose to it. But going back to the original, these people in the school board who did infiltrate a conservative area, they relied on the apathy of conservatives and centrists who don't like to get involved in that stuff, because it's just, they're out there, the conservatives and the centrists, and even a lot of liberals are just out there living their lives. They're making money. They're trying to get their kids to soccer practice. They're trying to get to ballet lessons. They're trying to take care of getting their kids to college, so on and so forth. So they don't have time for the politics, much less to run for office. And a lot of activists have taken advantage of that. And again, they think they are being compassionate with these disparate policies. Not only are you teaching the children, however, that their skin color is more than their actions, you are also not setting them up for success in the real world. There's the reason the saying is the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Your compassionate policies are going to have the exact opposite effect as these kids grow up. They're not going to be up to standards. They are not going to understand what is expected of them. And it is much, much harder to inculcate values and responsibility as a grown-up than it is as a child. You're much more malleable as a child. That's why education is targeted at the young, because they are malleable. So I think it was to use a very harsh example here, I think it was Joseph Stalin, I believe, it was either him or Lenin, that said, give me a child for the first 6 years of their life, and I will tell you what the next 60 years of their life will be like.
Sure.
They understand that if you can get in there early, you can either indoctrinate them or you can mold them, one of the two. But that's part of what is behind the push of so many teachers and so many administrators to grab a hold of our children so young, because they understand they are malleable. And it's part of the reason why parents are so invested in education, because I know I want my values passed on to my children. Now I understand they're gonna have their own mind, like like Miyagi told Daniel-san once, you decide your own way one day. But I've always told my daughter, I don't want to tell her what to think. I want her to think whatever she wants, but I want her to understand why she thinks that, why she believes the way she does. But you spend the first few years of a child's life trying to inculcate those values. And when you go to a policy like this and you say, consequence will be based on skin color, consequence is not based on your actions, that's not going to wash in the real world. Because you go out and let's say get drunk and run into a SUV full of kids, the judge isn't going to care what your skin color is. And if I can guarantee you, if the judge doesn't do something, there would be a return of vigilante justice on something like that.
Right.
The real world has consequences, and it's better to learn them in school, regardless of your background. We have all kinds of backgrounds in the United States, but we are trying to live in a common society. So there has to be a foundational baseline of values, whether it's don't steal, don't lie, work hard, show up on time. Those are not values that are based on skin color. Those are values based on what has worked for 2 centuries.
Unfortunately, some of the loonies on the left have now said that those type of values are white values, not human values.
Yeah, I would like them to tell that too.
Learning math is racist, or insisting somebody be on time is racist, and it's white patriarchy, privilege, fucking bullshit stuff. And
I'd like them to tell that to Thomas Sowell, the Nobel Prize-winning economist, or Denzel Washington, one of the best actors that has ever graced the screen. I wonder if Thurgood Marshall was late for shit all the time and didn't do his homework. Hey, as much as I do not like a lot of his politics, tell that to LeBron James, one of the 5 to 10 greatest basketball players of all time, who worked his ass off to become, regardless of what I think of some of his social outlook, he worked his ass off to become one of the greatest basketball players of all time.
Without question,
and he didn't do it because he decided not to show up or not to work hard.
No, fuck no. The guy's yeah, like you said, his politics are sketchy with me too, but his work ethic, you can't challenge his work ethic over the years.
Yeah.
You can't. Neither Michael Jordan, we talked about him last time, or any of these.
Yeah. Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time.
I agree with you there. Wasn't a huge fan of his when he was playing, and God rest his soul, but I was a huge Kobe fan as far as in that argument of top few basketball players of all time. Again, a guy that just busted his balls all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate that. We've had this conversation. I just really, really appreciate people like that. One thing I was going to ask you, and I won't get into we'll move on here to another topic, but I probably had it a lot different than a lot of folks. I'm in my early 50s now, and I went to a very small school, very small high school. There was, in my graduating class, I believe there was 23 kids in my graduating class.
Wow.
It was one of the smallest schools in the history of the school until the timber industry died in the late 90s and stuff after I was no longer in high school. But I shouldn't say it died. It was killed by the Clinton administration and their ridiculous policies.
Yeah.
But no, that's for different.
Another rant.
That's another rant. But I did know my teachers pretty well, because it's a small school and their kids are in school and you're friends with their kids and you end up going. I had a pretty tough home life. I'll just leave it at that. I know a lot of the teachers that I had knew that. I didn't know that then, but I know later in life that's why I had one family. Mom was a teacher, dad was a teacher. One of my favorite people that's ever lived, son, who I was very good friends with all the way through high school and college, became a teacher. And I would go on vacations with them during the summer. I was like one of the family. And then, Mr. C, he would, in the morning, he'd like, oh, hey, I knew Coop fellow was here because my couch cushions were missing, because I'd take him in Rob's room and lay on the floor and sleep in there, you know. And so I was but that was a different time. But I can tell you this, there was never a time. I was also very close with this lady who I hold very, very dear. She was a mother figure to a lot of us, and she was crazy. She was woo-woo. She's definitely leftist, but she was such a lovely person and a wonderful teacher, and just kind of crazy fun. I still adore the shit out of her. You know, I was friends with her kids too. I was over at their house a lot, and you could have that close relationship, but there's no fucking way I would have crossed the line. There's no way I would have disrespected that, because it was a privilege for them to treat me more of because I was a very smart kid, straight A students and all that, and I was a little wise beyond,
and humble.
I was a smart kid. I'm not that guy anymore, but hey, I was. No, I'm
just giving you shit. You were always smart.
I played sports, you know, and was a good citizen. You know, I was a cocky little fuck, and I definitely had my oppositional defiance disorder because of how I was raised. That was there, and I usually thought I was the smartest person in the room, even when there were older people in the room, whether that was true or not. But I can tell you what, the respect and love I had for those folks for treating me like that, for treating me with that special, you know, you're a good kid, and we kind of get what's going on with you, and you know, that there was a level above teacher relationship there. There was a little bit of a parental, even a friendship, I would say. I became personal friends with some of my coaches and teachers after I graduated and came back, you know. Funny thing is, I still call them Mr. or Mrs. or Ms. Last name. I cannot call any of my old teachers by their first name. It doesn't
like
work.
Trying to call one of your old officer bosses, you know, Mike or something.
That one's tough. Yeah, I don't think I'd be able to do that. But it was there was a level of respect there, and part of that level of respect was because there wasn't any feeling about, okay, I'm trying to turn you into this, or this is my opinion, you have to eat it wholesale, or anything like that. There was a level of respect for whatever was said, and I know I probably made them snicker a few times with my, I think you and I share this a little bit, Russ, but my, how can I put this? My insistence that I was right.
Arrogance. Yeah. Look, I had it too. The way that I was best described by somebody at one of my high school reunions was, I was that kid on his knees in his seat, waving his hand in the air, saying, "I know the answer."
Yeah, you were that guy. But it was kind of funny I'm still really good friends with the gals who did the high school annual that came out. And I'm actually, my senior year, there's a picture of me among the faculty, and it says vice principal. One of my good female friends did that as kind of a joke, and also to kind of take a little shot at me, because I did act like that. And the teachers let me get away with whatever all the time, because I was a good kid. I didn't get into trouble, you know, good grades, you know, and all that. But it was so different. The environment was so different. I look at it now, and I'm wondering, you know, we won't get deep into this, but the parental rights bill, hello everybody, parental rights bill that was passed in Florida to protect 5, 6, and 7-year-olds from things that
sexual indoctrination.
The only parents should be having that conversation with them. I'm sorry, it's fucking the cockiness and the arrogance of teachers. And I'm looking at teachers going, I know a lot of teachers, and I'll tell you what, the smartest fuckers I have ever known in my life were my fellow military professionals. You're an infantry officer. You were an infantry officer. You're always going to be an infantry officer. But yeah. People think, oh, it's about, you know, shooting guns and doing this. The smartest people I knew on planet Earth to this very day, including you, were infantry officers. Because you had to be so well-rounded. You had to have NFL football coaches, kind of the same mentality. There's so many things going on in your head all at the same time. And you're everything from a logistics expert to a weapons expert to, you know, having to maneuver big pieces on the battlefield. I would say, and the most educated group as well, some of the smartest people I've ever met. I don't have that same thought for the modern teacher. When I was a kid, I worshipped the ground teachers walked on. I did. And I had maybe I needed to take the wax out of my ears a little bit. There's a couple of coaches I'd like to go back and kick right in the fucking nuts, but they're too old now. I'd get thrown in prison for the rest of my life. But I don't know, just that whole feeling, the whole grossness of this leftist wokeism coming out of teachers. Like you heard that one teacher when they were talking about that bill, and she was so proud about the fact that she didn't have an American flag. She had the gay pride flag, and you can pledge allegiance to the gay. You know what? I'm going to tell you something flat out. And again, I am not a hater. I'm not. But what I hate is this small little subset of humanity making such a big deal all the time. If my kid was in that school and my teacher pulled that shit, it would be on. It would be on like Donkey Kong. There's no fucking way I would pull my kid out of that class. Not because I want my kid to learn how to hate gay people, because this has no place in here. What are you teaching in here? This is my job or my wife's job or whoever's job to teach these kids about these things outside of what we consider our norm. Not fucking arrogant fucking 24-year-old fucks who were C students by definition, probably in high school. At least most people I know were. They weren't, the straight A people did other things for a living for the most part. Like did shit like went in the army. Woohoo. Guilty. But I don't know. It really hurts me to the core, because I can tell you, had it not been for the teachers, and this is very personal to me, that's why I get so worked up about this. If it had not been for those great teachers that I came up with in a small town, who just, there was so much talent there, and we had such a good time. My life would have, I've had my difficulties in life, but I don't think I would have made it through my adolescence or my teen years very successfully. Knowing that I was cared about and there was a place to go where I could shine and be told, you're smart, you're a good kid, I really appreciate you. I wasn't getting that at home at the time, and that meant a lot to me. And so the way this has changed, and we can get off topic here, but I just kind of want to put that out there because it's very personal. And I do have a dog in the fight, because I remember being that kid who, dude, I didn't want to be home. Fuck, I never wanted to be home. I wanted to be in school, and I played every sports mostly just to avoid being home. Did everything I could. I was on every club. I did everything I possibly could. I was Joe High School. I was kind of sickening. You probably would have hated me, but I don't know. And I had really good friends. That we didn't have cliques so much. We could be jocks and really good at school at the same time. That was kind of the thing. Do everything all the time. It personally hurts to see what these young kids have to go through now, or what they're not getting. And I know, and I'm going to say this as a blanket apology. God, yes, I know there's some great teachers out there, and I can think of several off the top of my head that I know personally that I think I would love my kid to be in that person's class. That is a fucking awesome person, and that's the kind of person I would want teaching my kid. But it's gone off the rails, and it's just such an arrogance now that they think that they have the right. And I know people hate the word indoctrination. I do love, however, that the left hates that the conservatives are calling these people groomers that are against these bills, and all pissed off about that, because hey, it's fine. I look like this, so I'm a Nazi, obviously, or I'm a libertarian, so I'm a Nazi, obviously. That's fine to call. Or like the Republican or Democratic National Committee chairman calling, the senator. I'm sorry, he said he was full of. What did he say? Like something like full of maggots, maggot-infested something, because he was.
I'm not familiar with this one.
The Supreme Court justice, a little bit. Was it? Tom Cotton.
Thomas?
No. This Jackson. He was the one kind of going at her for Gitmo and some other things.
Oh, okay.
I think that was Tom Cotton, and the Republican National Committee chairman says he's a maggot-infested man.
The Democratic National Committee.
Democratic. Thank you. Yeah. I can't remember his name. He's an African American fellow. That's okay, but I believe if you're really truly against things like that, give parents the rights of control over their kids, and you want that ability to be able to tell kids about these things that are none of your business to tell kids. Yeah, I think calling you a groomer is appropriate. I do.
Yeah. First of all, just to agree with you, the folks who have called anyone to the right of Che Guevara Nazis and racists for the last 20 years would like you to know that they're very uncomfortable being called groomers.
Yeah, and they can go fuck themselves too, by the way.
First of all, we better be careful, Coop. I mean, some of our listeners here may think we're stroking each other a little bit too much, doing some cupping here if we agree too much. But
what were you buffing each other's balls? I believe was the term I got from one of
something like that. But to kind of
Katie, I'm talking about you.
To kind of extrapolate off of one of the points you just made, the parental rights bill in Florida is mainly targeted to K through 3, because we don't need folks having sexual conversations with K through 3-year-olds. I'm sorry, K through third graders. Excuse me.
Right.
That's usually age 5 through age 8. I could tell you when I was in kindergarten through third grade, I had no idea my teachers were not robots that were designed by the school, put away at the end of the day in a closet, and came out to teach us every day. My third grade teacher, Mrs. Gower, I had a vague indication she had a life outside of school, only because her son was in one of the other third grade classes down the hall. As far as anything else outside of that, I was in 8th grade before I was able to make the association that any of my teachers were autonomous human beings outside of school. And that's only because my drama teacher brought her toddler son to one of the junior high basketball games. And then later that year, she got pregnant. That's the only, that was like the first time I made the association. Hey, they have lives outside of this. K through 3, I had no idea. Even when a friend of mine, his mom was one of the teachers, was actually my teacher. I never made that association because my mind didn't operate on that level. There is a reason they are going after children this small, and it's not to teach tolerance. It's because they are malleable at that age.
Mm-hmm.
If it was really about trying to teach tolerance and other stuff, they'd save that for high school level when kids can look at the evidence to an extent and make a reasonable determination between various points of view. But I mean, you tell a kid at the age of 7 that something is a certain way, they are going to accept it as that way, and they're going to find ways to form a rationale around it. So they're doing this very deliberately. I am going to continue to call them groomers. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. If you're trying to make children be more comfortable talking about sexual orientation, whether it is gay or straight, I don't want you talking about sexual orientation at all.
I hear you.
With a 5-year-old or 6-year-old, that's just out of bounds. Preserve children's innocence for as long as you can. If you're going to have those conversations, it is going to groom them to be more receptible down the way. Whether you intend on diddling little kids or not, it's going to make them more susceptible to others who want to do that. So if you don't like being called a groomer, stop it. Teachers who are upset about this stuff, speak out. One of the other reasons why I have not particularly cared for some teachers recently is because if you disagree with it, then damn it, find your courage and speak out. Because until then, I'm going to have to assume that you agree with it. All right. Do not just try this sneak in the middle thing where, and you don't call all of us that. Well, if you oppose something that much, then speak out about it. Otherwise, I don't want to hear you griping about it. Anyway, that's the end of my rant about this if we want to move on. But I just.
Yeah, no, that's great stuff. I just one thing to wrap it up. I say this about a lot of stuff. If this country is so racist, how did we elect a black president 2 terms in a row? If this country is, this or that, how? Okay, here's my thing. Does it work or does it fucking not? So after a generation of these types of policies, of expansion of sex education, are there fewer abortions? Are there fewer out of wedlock babies? Or did anything get better with the expansion of this shit? Fuck no, it didn't.
It got worse.
It got worse. Trump was a terrible president. Really? You didn't like your life better 2.5, 3 years ago than you like it today? As far as your buying power. And I got to tell you, inflation's killing me, Russ. I'm on a fixed income, and my fixed income didn't go up by much.
Yeah, it's killing me too. I've been noticing it everywhere from gas prices to, and I realize it's going to make me sound like a turd, but some mornings I get like a McDonald's breakfast that's gone up by over $1. It's just I noticed these things. This has happened within the last 6 months.
These policies are not fucking working. They have not worked. So why are we still doing them? Why are you so? I got to tell you, if I was in a company like that and the policies were this and it didn't work, do you think I would not speak up? I would not go, what the fuck are we doing? We need to change our direction here.
They're wedded to it.
We lost every game in the varsity football season. Well, something needs to fucking change, doesn't it? And that's the way this country is now. It doesn't matter how much they lose as long as their little fucking Napoleonic complexes are intact with being in charge.
Yeah, well, people, you know how much people dislike admitting that they are wrong or they were wrong. And so a lot of it's a pride issue. A lot of, they're just so wedded to it. They really believe it works. It was Einstein who said, keep doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. That's the definition of insanity. It seems like we have to relearn these lessons every couple of decades, given the fact that, we tried this shit in the 70s and it resulted in horrible policies. The only reason FDR was able to get away with it in the 30s was because the Depression was so bad. And then we had threats in Asia and Europe. But FDR was basically the first socialist president. His policies were garbage. Every economist agrees that they prolonged the Depression by at least 8 years. So you had the 30s, you had the early 30s, late 70s, and now you have the early 20s. It's like every 40 to 45 years, we seem like we have to go through this shit to remind ourselves how stupid it is.
Yeah, but you and I are just a couple of. I'm a pragmatic libertarian that makes me the most evil guy in the whole world because I just want shit to work. I just want shit to work.
Yep.
I
want it to work, and I want people to leave me alone.
Yes, and I want to treat people kindly and with compassion and get along with people, as a third thing too. But like as I'm fond of saying, when I worked for corporate America or in the army, it's safety first. Safety about third or fourth. Safety
Yeah,
first doesn't really get the job done.
not in combat.
No, sir. Let's talk a little bit about Elon Musk, and
Oh, I love Elon Musk.
I man crush on that guy so bad. I wish he was in charge of the universe. But I just love how pragmatic he is. I love how when we talk about the conversion to green energy, he's like, I own the biggest green energy thing on planet Earth, and we're not ready for that. So I don't mind losing some money so we can get the prices down at the pump. But yes, he is the majority shareholder in the evilness that is Twitter. What do you think?
Well, a couple things. First of all, did you happen to see Elon Musk's latest Twitter poll?
I didn't. I saw something this morning when I was 3 o'clock in the morning with insomnia and I was going through my news feed, but I didn't read all of it.
His tweet, he put up a Twitter poll. They said, yes or no, convert Twitter San Francisco headquarters to a homeless shelter since no one shows up anyway.
Oh,
Oh, which is just awesome. It's that level of trollery that, especially now that he owns the largest share in Twitter. First of all, two things about his share. One, it's been great to watch the blue check mark folks freak out about it. One woman, I think her name was Ellen Rao. I don't remember that. I may be getting that wrong, but put an article about how Elon Musk possibly opening up Twitter to less censorship is a danger to free speech. Not really sure how that works.
I did hear that. I can't wrap my head around that at all.
Yeah, well, I heard another good analogy earlier today. I don't know who said it, but it's apt. Uh, Elon Musk is Darth Vader, and all these Twitter freak out folks are a guy who you would know on the screen but might not know him by name, Commander Jerjerrod, who was the officer on the Death Star when during Return of the Jedi, Vader walked down the ramp,
Okay.
and
Yeah, yeah.
Jerjerrod is very nervously saying, we're delighted by your visit, Lord Vader. Oh, what an unexpected pleasure. And Vader's like, I'm here to put you back on schedule. I mean, that's kind of what Musk is like. He's like, I'm here to. And another fun thing regarding what's going on with Musk. For the last several years, to justify all the censorship of everything, a lot of these lefties have said, well, Twitter's a private company. They can censor whoever they want. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. And now that Elon Musk is grabbing a little bit more of a hold on Twitter, the same people are saying, hey, Twitter is too important to leave in the hands of a private businessman. It's funny to watch the freak out. I mean, Musk was originally teasing that he was going to set up his own social media platform. And then he went out and he decided, no, I'll just take what's already there. I mean, the dude's worth somewhere around $220 billion.
Yeah, the cool thing too is in the stock that he bought, he immediately made $1 billion within a day because of the price surge off the stock that he owns. So
sorry if
cool, another fucking rocket. Yeah, baby, get him.
Sorry if you're having a little bit of trouble hearing me right now. My wife has decided to go ahead and hop on the riding lawnmower and is outside mowing our grass right now.
Is that like a sign, or is that something she does, or is she trying to send?
Well, look, when she's going later tonight to a business meeting that we have set up. But I was like, what?
Oh yeah, Amway. Amway meetings are great.
Yeah, no. And she said, I'm gonna, I was like, I'll get out in the yard later today. I'll mow the yard. And she was like, hey, I like doing that stuff. I think it's not just the fact that she does enjoy being out in the yard and working out there, but she wants to get on the riding lawnmower before I do, so that I'm the one out there with the weed eater and the push mower getting other spots, and she's out there riding around doing her stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. This summer when I was kind of off and on staying at we did some podcasts from my friend's ranch way up in the middle of nowhere, the Kelly Ranch, Jen and Tom. And I got on their lawnmower one day when they were gone, thinking, I'll mow it because I have a huge property. Get on the riding lawnmower, get on the old John Deere and mow the lawn for him. Fuck, I blew it up.
That sucks.
I just thought about that yesterday. I texted my friend Jen and I'm like, I need to scrape some money together to replace that lawnmower now that it's spring. That was, I felt, nothing I did, but it just, it happened to be when I was on it. Fucking just blew it up. I'm like, Yeah. So we'll see. I'll have to sell Huckleberry into like prostitution or something to raise the money. But
Anyway, back to Elon Musk.
yeah, Elon Musk. No, I think it's amazing. The guy is just. I know he's had some gaffes and he said some things and la la la. I don't care. I don't care. I just absolutely 100%. Yeah, I'd follow him to hell with a bucket of fucking piss. I would. I swear to God, I would.
Well, it's the facts that he is rich, smart, and has enough balls to push back because he knows, hey, look, I got like $220 billion worth of shit. What are you going to do to me?
Yeah, that's not fuck you money. That's fuck me money. I can fuck myself and still be okay.
Yeah, I mean, he I think one of the things that pisses off the left the most about him is he's not one of them. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that he's a libertarian conservative and whatnot, but he's not a radical leftist, and he's willing to say openly when he thinks radical leftist stuff is stupid.
Right.
And I think that's got a lot of people in shock. I don't, because they're not used to the pushback. I don't know if you saw what happened to Brian Stelter recently during one of these Q&A panels.
Oh yeah. The freshman kid.
Yeah, freshman college student stood up and said,
him.
"Hey, you talk about disinformation, but CNN just went along with the Russian collusion hoax. They went along with the Covington Catholic kids stuff. They went along with this, that, and the other. You know, and all these mistakes seem to go in one direction. How can you sit up here and talk about disinformation and stuff?" It's like, well, it's time for lunch. They're not used to the pushback, especially if it comes in any kind of coherent manner. They want to categorize all pushback as, you know, Alex Jones kind of the frogs are gay kind of stuff. And so when you actually run to intelligent pushback the way that Elon Musk does it, it throws them off balance because they've had the culture for so long, they haven't had to learn to deal with that kind of disagreement.
Right. Yeah, you know, Brian Stelter, he's one of those guys that I have no idea how he got into the business or he became a celebrity or has any money because
Stelter
he's one of the least talented. He looks like
proof that if you have the right politics and are willing to kiss the right ass, you can go far.
He's terrible, and I don't even care about his politics because I think there's people on the left that are talented. You know,
he ain't one of them.
He ain't one of them. No, it's like if Paul Giamatti and John Favreau raped a potato, he would be their kid.
That's awesome.
That was off the top of my head. Sorry. But and his voice, of course, just that lispy ass weak. And he always has that gleam, kind of like Paul Giamatti. You know, when Paul Giamatti starts getting angry, he's got that gleam of sweat on him all the time.
Yeah.
Stelter can't help himself. He looks like a freshly waxed lane where a white bowling ball went down it. I mean, it's just like, it's gross. I know.
But it is part of the general pushback that has started. The backlash began probably it began with the "Let's Go Brandon" chants.
Yeah.
Which before that with the F Joe Biden chants in the college sporting events. I think it's kind of stunned the left a little bit because they're not used to this level of pushback.
No, they're not.
And they're not used to as many people doing it. I think they thought, we're in power now, we'll just do whatever we want and the right will go along to get along like they always have. But just like anybody who's drunk with power, they push things a couple of steps too far. Everything from the, try to be less white. I don't even know what the hell that means, to, yes, we are going to show your children what our lifestyle is like at the age of 6. People are suddenly like, okay, time out. I've had enough of this bullshit. It's time to show you that you are not the majority, that we are. And, you pushed my buttons one too many times. It's starting. I think it's going to continue for a while for 2 reasons. Number one, I think it's woken up very large interest group of the formerly apathetic who did not want to be involved, but now have no choice but to be involved. And the other reason I think it's going to continue for a while is because I think they're so wedded to this garbage. I don't think they know how to extricate themselves from it, because it would mean disassociating from a core constituency that they've come to rely on. The right, to an extent, disassociated with some of the quasi-fascists in the mid-'60s with the John Birch Society and so on, when William F. Buckley said, hey, we don't need these folks in the movement. The Democrats themselves have done this before. They did it in 1944 when FDR, looking at, Henry Stimson, the vice president at the time, who was a communist sympathizer, saying, hey, we can't have this in the Democratic Party. It's going to destroy us.
Right.
And so they did manage to disassociate from some of the communist elements within the party at that point. But now they're so wedded to it that I don't think they can extricate themselves without being in the wilderness for a generation. Because it's going to take a couple of election cycles to win back, a couple of election cycles where they act somewhat sane to win back the folks they've driven off.
Yeah, I don't know that that's ever going to happen again. For the sake of the country, I hope it does. I mean, I really do. I will sit here and tell you, I've voted for Democrats in my life. I have, and I did not regret it.
I have at the local level, but only at the local level.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever voted for a Democratic president, but definitely.
I've never voted for a Democratic senator, congressional representative.
I have.
President.
I definitely have.
I have voted for Democrats at like county commissioner level.
Yeah.
But that's been the highest it's gone.
Yeah, no, and I got no problem with that, and I would like to be able to do that again someday. To go, because
if I lived in West Virginia, I could probably vote for Joe Manchin.
Gotcha. I hear that. I don't. You know me. I hate dogmatic thinking. I hate dogma.
Yep.
As I like to say, my karma just ran over my dogma. So, thank you very much. Tip your waitresses.
I'm a poet and don't even know it, D.
I'll have to make a T-shirt. Maybe we'd sell one or two more a month than we normally do. Anyway, what were we talking about? Democratic presidents or Democrat
voting and dogma and dogma.
I was just gonna wrap my thoughts up with that, saying, we've had this conversation before, and I don't know how much you would agree or disagree with me on this, but I felt that happened to the Republican Party. When George Bush ran against Bill Clinton, and the moral majority and the hard right, religious right, I should say, were such a big part of platforming and some of the other things going on. Pat Robertson et al. I think that stunted the Republican Party for a generation. It wasn't, it was brutal. It was brutal.
We're all pushed back on that. I don't think it was as wedded as you're saying. I think that a lot of the weddedness of that, a lot of the interlocking arms on that, I think was a lot of a media narrative creation. And I think that was because they saw advantage in playing that up, because they knew that there's a lot of people, especially in the young demographics, that were turned off by that.
Yeah.
And I think that the problem is that they've relied on it so much, and they keep upping the ante each time. I mean, I am sure that they are going to try to label whoever gets the next Republican nomination that is not Donald Trump. Like, let's say it's Ron DeSantis, or let's say it's
boy, they hate Ron DeSantis, don't they?
Yeah, or let's say it's Glenn Youngkin in Virginia, or Kristi Noem in South Dakota, or Tim Scott. That would be fun to try to watch them try to do that. Tim Scott.
Tim Scott's kind of a gangster too. He would
look,
he would not take that well.
After Donald Trump is the worst thing since, he's worse than Hitler. I don't know how they up the ante anymore, because I think people are going to say, wait a minute. You said this about Donald Trump, and now you're going to tell me that Ron DeSantis or Glenn Youngkin is worse? That makes no sense. I think that the act is starting to wear thin. Now, don't get me wrong. There have been some challenges in the Republican Party. Some Republicans willing to make bedfellows that maybe they shouldn't have in the interest of victory. A lot of too much overt nationalism.
Yeah.
You look at 1992 with Pat Buchanan.
I'm sorry, that's what I meant to say is Pat Buchanan. I apologize. Yeah. I said Pat Robertson, so let me correct that.
Well, Pat Robertson did try to run in '88 for the presidency.
He did, but it was Pat Buchanan's speech at the convention that was a disaster.
Yeah, well, that speech and his running is probably what cost George that, plus the media narrative of the worst economy in 50 years, which, if you notice, that narrative turned around literally within 24 hours of the election. I remember watching that shit, and I was getting real pissed off about it. But yeah, I do think that Buchanan and the narrative probably cost George H.W. Bush the election in '92.
I think so.
Now, going to Bill Clinton, let me say, I don't really like hearing a lot from the left talk about how Donald Trump has got this morally cretinous personality and character, which I agree with to an extent. I like his policies. I think he's a little bit of a blowhard. But listening to the moral lecturing from folks who forgave every sin, Bill Clinton putting his dick in the mouth of a young intern and getting away with it, and his constant womanizing and his constant lying about it, I really don't want to hear moral lectures from people who held him up as a paragon. or a paragon of virtue of some kind. That just doesn't wash with me. It's like listening to Eric Swalwell, that wonderful congressman from California, trying to lecture people on national security when he was off banging a Chinese spy for a couple of years.
Yeah,
Okay,
he's still
it
around,
holds
by
no
the way.
water.
Still around, by the way.
Oh, I know. He will be because he's in a district where you can have anybody with a D after their name that gets the nomination is going to win because it's bluer than your shirt.
Yep. Like AOC's district and some of the other stuff. It just, and like a lot of the California districts and stuff like that.
And it's gotten worse with some of the extreme gerrymandering. It's hard. There are a lot fewer competitive / purple districts. Plus, self-sorting in the United States is going on. People, I listen to Colin Cowherd sometimes, and I love hearing his take on sports. But he's always playing up California. Like California's got 39 million people in it. Yeah, California used to have 41 million people in it. People are leaving California and going to Florida and Tennessee. People are self-sorting by political identification. I'm not sure that's good for the country, but I understand it.
I don't.
It's going to make congressional seats A, less competitive, and since they're less competitive, it's going to make them B, more extreme.
Well said. How much more time you got?
Maybe 20 to 30-ish minutes.
Okay, you want to talk about some of the evolution of the things that used to be great and now were ruined by wokeism?
We're talking entertainment or life in general?
Like some of the childhood stuff you mentioned, and
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll give the floor to you.
Well, a lot of Hollywood these days, they're not making a lot of original movies. There are almost no original ideas out there. So what they are doing is they are recycling stuff that was nostalgic from our childhood and hoping that the crowds that loved them originally will show back up. Unfortunately, they're also wokeifying a lot of it. It happened to the Star Wars trilogy, for example, where we got Admiral Purple Hair and everybody under the sun, being just so woke about stuff and getting rid of childhood idols like Admiral Akbar for, like I said, old Admiral Purple Hair, turning Han Solo from one of the coolest guys in the galaxy to a dysfunctional loser dad that abandoned his kid basically and his wife. That's one. I know you love Star Trek, but they have really wokeified Star Trek. Captain Kirk was, the swashbuckling cool guy that could bed any alien under the sun. And now we've got folks worried about what their impact on, alien cultural phenomena are going to be. Even Jean-Luc Picard, and I know you and I probably disagree on this. I haven't watched all of the series of Picard. I have watched enough and I've read enough. Picard was much more of a thinker than Kirk was, but he's still a man of action. And he's become a crotchety old man in Picard who is bowing to every woke trope under the sun, including the new storyline where they're having to go back to 2024 to fix the dark universe. If those who don't know anything about Star Trek, in the original Star Trek, there was a mirror universe they called the Dark Universe, where Earth was a fascistic empire and had taken over much of the galaxy. And they kind of continued that storyline through Enterprise, through Deep Space Nine, so on and so forth. Well, the new series Picard, first of all, it started by perverting Gene Roddenberry's utopian vision of a federation where we gathered aliens together and Starfleet was out for peace, to where it was a xenophobic organization that was only out for itself, which goes against every tenet Starfleet ever had. And then this latest attempt to overturn the dark universe somehow can be traced to 2024 and the election or the ascendancy of a politician to start all that. Gee, I wonder who they're referring to. Trump. As if that's not going to piss off at least 40% of the nation when they do something like that. Like I said, they've done it on the Ghostbusters, all female Ghostbuster reboot they did a couple years ago was trying to cash in on nostalgia, and what it did was it stomped all over the Ghostbusters legacy. You'd have thought that Disney, when they're starting to make new Marvel movies, would have learned from Marvel Comics of the 1990s. And what I mean by that is in the 1990s, Marvel Comics started a lot of woke tropes. I think they really were the first to go true woke in entertainment. And what happened was their core demographic of, you know, young men between the ages of 18 and 30 stopped buying their comic books because they didn't want to be preached to. It is why Spider-Man belongs to Sony. It's why Fox was able to buy X-Men and Fantastic Four, because Marvel was about to go bankrupt and they had to sell off several of their franchises just to stay afloat. Well, now Disney and the Marvel Universe have decided to go woke. One of the latest examples is Thor is going to be a woman. Natalie Portman picking up the hammer is going to become Thor, as if, you know, people are going to buy that. I don't think that's going to happen. You know, I love me some Natalie Portman, but, you know, just making Thor a woman just for the sake of doing it, or increasing Valkyrie's profile just to do it. They only kind of touched on it briefly during the Avengers Endgame movie when you had that sequence during the battle with Thanos, where suddenly you had, was it 7 or 8 women on screen all at once, be like, she's got help, and it's, you know, it's girl power. And I'm like, well, okay, fine, but shouldn't we be showing how folks are working together as opposed to segregating themselves and going apart? Because a lot of guys, you can bitch and moan about this all you like, but a lot of guys are not going to stay interested in that for more than part of one movie. And if you try to make multiple movies like this, you're going to suffer the same fate that Marvel Comics did in the 90s. And Lord only knows, you're going to be looking back 10 years from now and wanting to know what happened to your profit margin. So those are just a few examples of, you know, Kathleen Kennedy getting in on Disney is one of the things that destroyed the Star Wars franchise, because they can't build original products of their own. This comes back to school boards and other things. They have to infiltrate already established products and change them, hoping that you won't notice, even though most folks do.
Yeah, I get most of what you're saying. I'll tell you this, and I've brought it up on podcasts before. Star Trek Discovery is one of the worst television shows in history. It's one of the worst television shows in history, bar none. It's unwatchable. The only part of it that was cool was when Anson Mount was on there as Captain Christopher Pike, and then revived his character. I mean, in the entire universe, there is one straight white guy. Because Discovery, look, I say a lot of shit about stuff like this. It was sensation overload. I really tried to get into it at first, but then, you know, it started with we run on mushrooms. Our warp drive is run on mushrooms. It's supposed
to dilithium crystals.
Yeah, we run on mushrooms now, the mycelium network. That's how we get across the universe in no time. Every character on there was either a person of color or transgender or pangender or whatever you call that.
It wasn't very subtle. It was an attempt to say, here's what you must like. Look, it's one thing for folks to be like that. I don't really care. It's another thing for you to preach it at me.
That's what I'm saying. You know, I don't care either. I'm sorry, folks. Get over yourselves. The LGBTQ plus community is not 95% of humanity. It's less than a couple of percentage points. Okay, it is by any means. The most outrageous number that they came up with in studies was 8% of the population, and I think that's high. But Star Trek Discovery had to take that to the nth degree, where every character on there basically was pan or transsexual. Yep. That's just weird. Okay, and then to have the main character, whatever, I can't remember the name of the actress who plays Michael. And why do chicks have dude names now in TV shows all the time? Michael Burnham.
This wasn't Sonia Green, was it?
She's no. She's a very pretty black lady, got the long hair, but she's a terrible actress. Like, everything is really. It's kind of like Mark Wahlberg talking. Like, hey, hi buddy, I just ran. How you doing? I'm out of breath because I was just working out. Hey, good to see you, partner. I mean, it was like listening to Mike Wahlberg talk. Everything on there. The storyline just got woker till like every character that was on the bridge was either an alien or some type of transgender, or it was Michael Burnham, who, oh, by the way, committed high treason and should have been in military prison for the rest of her life, but she becomes a captain again and commands this vessel. I did see the trailer for the new Pike series, the new series that's coming out. That's Christopher Pike, Anson Mount, who I really liked. I like as an actor a lot, and then of course Rebecca Romijn is his XO, so that's worth a watch.
That'd be interesting.
Yes, and she was really good in those episodes that I saw. I think season 2 of Discovery. But yeah, it just blows me away. I'll disagree with you a little bit on Picard. The original concept with the whole, I know a lot about the lore and the history of Star Trek because I am a Trekkie, and
Oh my.
he was not the as brilliant of as an actor as he is, and I did get to see him when I was in high school. He played Richard III in a live play, Shakespeare play, and I got to see him not knowing who he was, but guy's a brilliant actor, Patrick Stewart. And so what they did was they realized that they did most of the executives did not want him as Captain Picard. They had somebody much different in mind, and his stoic and very stately nature. So what they did was they took Commander Riker and really expanded his roguishness in the couple of seasons, seasons 2, 3, 4, and kind of made him that Kirk, that counterbalance to Picard. He had a lot of Kirk in him, big, handsome, strapping guy, liked the ladies, liked to drink, liked to play his trombone in the in the holodeck. But I think they're doing kind of a cool thing with his character now. I think I really enjoyed the first season, especially seeing some of the old folks from Next Generation make Jonathan Frakes, Commander Riker, directs most of the episodes, and you can tell he's got a pretty big hand in it. I do like the story. There was a couple of moments that bothered me. I like the new characters. I like his crew. I like the Spanish gentleman. I can't remember his name, who's the captain of that ship that he's on, and then the black female. She's very attractive. She's a good actress. I love that 7 of 9 is part of the crew again. Love 7 of 9. I mean, love 7 of 9. And then Alison Pill, who plays the Doctor. She's just a good actor. She's one of the homeliest girls on planet Earth, but she always manages to play. Her acting is just awesome. I love her. So I like the storyline there. The wokeism, I don't know if you've seen the episode where he, Ten Ford, where he finds a bar named Ten Ford, and it's actually Guinan, but 300 years before he meets her. And so she's a young black woman. She's not Whoopi Goldberg. It was a different actress. And
that kind of disrupts the continuity from one of the episodes where Picard went back in time to San Francisco in the late 1800s, and it was Whoopi Goldberg.
Yeah, and I did notice that. But that got a little woke because her whole thing was nobody's going to come into a bar where a black female owns it in 2024, and the things that. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me with this stuff
that's
right
crap.
now? This isn't 1952, okay?
No.
This you own the day right now. People like Whoopi and stuff like that own the fucking day. They're almost, until the last few years, have been unchallenged in the pushing the woke agenda. So that bothered me a little bit to kind of rehash all that. And you're right about the candidate in 2024. But I do like the story. I will admit, Discovery is junk. Discovery is a fucking steaming pile of shit. I think that the writing was terrible. All they tried to do, I don't know if that fucking was it. Kripke, one of the guys that was a showrunner on that or something like that. He likes to woke shit up in the Marvel universe as well. He was the Supernatural guy, which I loved, but he was a showrunner.
I love Supernatural, but it went downhill when Kripke left.
Yeah, it did. And he's a talented guy, but I saw him on an interview, and he was just like, yeah, people were giving me shit because I made Captain America or Captain Marvel a female. Well, you can all eat a big bag of dicks all the way to the sun. That's what he said on the interview. I'm like, oh, that was mature. That's what he actually said.
That's going to win over a lot of fans.
Yeah, and he's like 5'3", and he looks like that he's suffering from fucking some horrible virulent form of gonorrhea and liver disease, and it's like, yeah, you don't want to talk like that, dude. But I get it. The Star Wars franchise, you must be. I know you're hurting over it. I know you're angry over it. Probably more angry than hurting over it. I was so looking forward to these series of movies to kind of move the story forward, but probably like you, I was thinking of, oh, it's going to be great. Luke's going to be married to Mara Jade. And, from like the comics and the movies and the video games, and they're going to have the Jedi Academy again, and they're going to be raising Luke and Leia's kids as the next generation of great Jedi. And boy, they did not do any of that cool shit that they did in this. Nothing. And I got to tell you, Mark Hamill, never really liked the guy. I think he makes a good animated Joker voice. I would smash him into the fucking face if I was in the same room with him at this point. All the crazy leftist bullshit that he's reeling off, and I almost tweeted him when he was like doing that gay, that stupid shit that was a lie, that there's no such thing as don't say gay, Bill. But It's like, didn't you in your first scene back as Luke Skywalker milk some weird fucking creature and drink the milk and make a weird face, and that was like reintroduction to you where what's her face, Ray was back there. That was so weird. That was so disconcerting. That scene where she goes to the island where he is, and he's like milking some really gross creature and drinking it, and making faces at her. Like, this is fucking Luke Skywalker. You know, if you follow like the video games and the books and the comic books that happen after the original lore, he became a badass. I mean, he was a fucking badass.
Yeah,
you know?
he became a Jedi Master. That's one of the reasons why Jon Favreau put some of the Luke scenes in The Mandalorian, was to show what he was actually like.
Right, and whatever he became, this hippie ass, weird, feeling sorry for myself, recluse thing, that tore me a new one. And then, like you said, the storyline where I'm surprised that our boy Han Solo, I'm really surprised that he even allowed that storyline to float around like that. That he didn't.
I think he did it because they ended up killing Han Solo, and he wanted Solo dead in Return of the Jedi to add gravitas to the character, and not realizing that these are children's movies that they sell toys about.
Right, that's exactly right. Yeah, so that whole storyline where everything about it grossed me out, everything, and you know, the stupid resurrection of what's his face, the Emperor.
That was just the tired old trope. It means there's no tension. If anybody can come back at any time, then there's no tension. I despise that terribly, and they were trying to retcon Episode 9 because they understood that Rian Johnson destroyed everything with Episode 8, right. And they shit on everything. I've seen Rise of Skywalker once. I've seen The Last Jedi once. I won't watch them again. I've
never seen Rise of Skywalker. I refuse to watch it.
I watched it once just to see what it was like, and it was, to me, every bit as bad as I expected it to be.
Is that the last one in the series? I'm sorry, Rise of Skywalker.
The last one that had did have Palpatine return.
I saw the trailer, and it's like, nope. I actually like what's the name of the actor that plays
Ian McDiarmid?
Kylo Ren.
Adam
Driver.
Oh, I'd have known it if you hadn't said it.
Adam Driver.
Adam Driver, that's it, yeah.
Yeah, I actually really like him as an actor. I actually really do. He's an odd-looking fellow, and I'm not into him being a leading man, but if you've ever seen some of his work on Saturday Night Live with the humor and stuff like that, he's a funny fucking guy.
He's also a former Marine that has a sense of humor. If you saw when Ricky Gervais tore all of the actors a new one during the Oscars a couple of years ago, Adam Driver is one of the ones in the audience that's laughing his ass off at it.
I can't remember where I first saw him. I'm like, wow, this is a really homely dude.
Well, we know you were a big watcher of girls.
I've seen 0 minutes of girls. 0 minutes. The only thing I've ever seen is I clicked on, it was like clickbait, and I click, and there's Adam Driver with his face buried in the butthole of one of the girls from the show, and I'm like, okay, that's enough.
I did not need to know that.
Yeah, and then Lena Dunham doing nude scenes. I'm like, that's enough. That was kind of like what I put on the Adam Carolla podcast yesterday, where I saw that. What's her face? Lizzo.
Uh-huh.
Remember I sent you that photo off my screenshot.
Oh,
of my
I remember. Let's glorify people being morbidly obese.
Yeah, and I'm like, instead of looking for big girls, why don't you look for a fucking salad? And then, of course, that got me some hate over there on that webpage, but I don't care.
I don't give up. Look, I'm sure we could do an entire episode on obesity.
Yes, we could. And Lord knows that I'm not obese, but I do struggle with, being a little...
So do I. Look, I'm 180-ish pounds. I would like to lose 10 to 15 pounds. Yeah, but I also understand that that's in my control. The reason I haven't lost that weight is I'm not willing to do what it takes. And I don't mean from an exercise standpoint, because I exercise 7 days a week. I'm on the elliptical 4 days a week. I'm walking my dog 3 to 4 days the rest of the week. Right. But I enjoy my food. I enjoy some sweets. I enjoy some sodas. So that's my choice. I'm simply not willing to make the choices necessary to lose that weight. And if people who are obese would accept that, I could have more respect for them. But they don't want to see anything as their fault.
Right. No, I hate that too. And it's just most of the people that died during this COVID thing were obese people. There was a comorbidity with being obese. Absolutely.
78% of the people who were hospitalized or died were categorized as obese.
Huge comorbidity. I wanted to ask you one question before we start wrapping up, and I'll ask you one final topic before we get off. What did you think about Ghostbusters Afterlife?
I liked it. I think I have trouble being objective about it because it was more of much like Spider-Man No Way Home. It was a nostalgic fan service film.
Yeah, it was.
I did enjoy it.
I don't have a problem with that though.
Yeah, I did have a problem with it. Not a problem. I did enjoy it. Like I said, I would have trouble being objective about it because like when Spengler came on near the end, I'm like getting a little bit choked up. I realized that kind of revoked my man card.
I bawled like a baby. I did.
I did enjoy it. I liked the actress that played Spengler's granddaughter. She's been
She's
in
wonderful. She's wonderful,
she's
actually.
been on the Young Sheldon
Okay.
quite a bit.
Okay.
I think she's got a bright future as an actress.
She kind of reminds me of what's the Millie? What's her name from Stranger Things? Kind of that level of.
I've only seen a couple episodes of Stranger Things, and I haven't
Oh,
seen it in a couple of years.
oh, I'm
So
surprised, dude. I think you'll love it. I think you'll love it.
I've been needing to get into it, but it's a matter of time. But
Oh, it's
I did enjoy
1980s. 1980s. Everything about it's perfect. The kids are fucking fantastic actors. Yeah, Millie Brown, I think is her name, the young actress who plays the.
Yeah, one of the things the new Ghostbusters tried to undo everything that the wokeified all-female Ghostbusters did, which was good. It completely ignored the existence of that universe, which some of the folks like the 4 folks in the United States who enjoyed that wokeified Ghostbusters were pissed off about, but I don't care.
Right.
So I enjoyed it. Trying to put it in context of movies overall, Vice, the time period it came out is challenging for me. So it's hard for me to give it a rating one way or the other. I would watch it again. Like I said, I enjoyed it. I'm not sure it's one of the greatest movies of all time.
No, I wouldn't put it up there either. I have three minor complaints with the Ghostbusters Afterlife, and these are
Okay,
fairly.
what are
Shit. What's his name? The actor, the funny guy that's on there. That's the love interest of the mom. He's been in every comedy.
they?
Ever.
Paul Rudd.
Paul Rudd. I fucking love Paul Rudd, and he needed more screen time when he became the hellhound. Then he just disappeared for like the last half of the movie. I thought that was a bad choice. And I love Carrie Coon, the one that plays the mom. I think she's a great actress and sexy as fuck. So I was like, they probably should have expanded that storyline. I wanted more of the old school guys on there. I mean, I would have dragged that last battle out for a while so I could see more Bill Murray being Bill Murray and Ernie Hudson. And I just loved it when they showed up. And I would have liked, there was only maybe 5 or 6 minutes screen time with them on there. And I would have liked to seen a little bit more of that.
Yeah, I think they actually did that well, and here's what I mean by that. I agree. Most folks wanted more, but if you're a decent storyteller, what you want to give folks just enough to where they're begging for more. Mm-hmm. Because if you give them too much, they grow tired of it. And I think they did that intentionally to get people's appetites wet a little bit and say, okay, now I got to have more. I love that, and I think that was intentional to make people like the movie more, so that they didn't grow bored of it over time. It's like when WWE brings in the midget wrestlers, and they sell out an arena for a night, and that's great because everybody enjoyed it. But if they try to do midget wrestling all the time, people get bored of it.
I can't imagine anybody fucking enjoying that, and my stomach's a little sick even thinking about it right now. So, thanks for that. Were you?
So what are your other 2 issues?
Were you there when I can't remember? We'll move on. But were you there when fuckers took me? I think I was at Sac State still, and fuckers took me to Hooters for my birthday lunch.
And I do remember hearing about it. I didn't go.
I didn't know if you went with us or not. I couldn't remember, but there was a bunch of us, and they purposely set it up so that the waitress was a small person. And for those of you that don't know this about me, and I'm not proud of this, I just want to say I have to own it though. I fear the fuck out of midgets. I do, and so
one of the reasons he's afraid of me.
Oh my, exactly. I used to say shit like that to you all the time to tease you, but I hear, "Sir, did you order the fries?" And I turn around and there's like a 3-foot little gal that's wearing the Hooters stuff, and I yelled, and I dropped my napkin, and she looked at me and just threw the fries down on the table and kind of ran off, and that was with Joe Torres and that other California National Guard dude that worked over there for a while, and Jason, and there was a few. I think Mocker was there. They were dying. I mean, they were literally dying.
I wish I'd been there to see that.
Yes, I felt terrible about it, but I was like, you motherfuckers, I'm gonna fuck you all up in one way or another. Of course, I thought it was hilarious. It was a great prank. I got owned on that one a little bit, but off topic. All right, so before we wrap up, is gravity a force or is it an effect?
Gravity is an effect. It's not a force.
I agree with you 100% on that. I spend a lot.
Now we're stroking each other again.
I know, but I do. But I spend a lot. Physics is one of my passions. I spend a lot of time, and I love some of the quantum gravity theory and some of the other stuff that's starting to come out now. The reason it's not a force is that every other force, according to the standard model, is associated with a particle.
That's just what I was going to say.
Yep, and there is no particle. There's no graviton. We've never discovered it, even with the large collider, hadron large collider, and all that kind of stuff. Nothing's ever showed up. Matter of fact, now a prevailing theory is gravity is nothing more than an effect of time. Time determines gravity, which is interesting.
Yeah, if you imagine space as a superfluid, gravity is the result of a dense object in the middle of that superfluid that warps space-time. So anything that happens to come moving by will roll slightly towards that curvature. It may roll more or less depending on how strong the curvature is, but there's nothing about that object that is reaching out to grab something to pull it towards it. It is an effect of how that object is affecting space-time. Right. The other three forces, the strong nuclear force, the weak nuclear force, and electromagnetism, and possibly another force they're investigating called quintessence, which they think may be responsible for the expansion of the universe. They all have particles of some kind associated with it, just like you said. They've theorized that a graviton may be a massless particle, which I'm not trying to wrap my head around. A massless particle is one thing, but even so, a graviton is not going to be able to reach out. They don't reach out across the universe and start affecting things. Something that is sufficiently dense can affect things that are literally light years away because it causes a curvature or a wobble in the rest of space, to just much like if you are on the side of a hill and you're kind of leaning towards going down the hill. It doesn't mean that you're forced that way all the time, but the effect of the gravity at the bottom of that hill is going to force you to kind of lean in that direction. We bring this up because this is going to sound weird, but my soon-to-be 9-year-old and I had a mild argument over gravity being a force or an effect, because her tests, I'll call it a force. I think it's one of the reasons why we've never been able to reconcile the theory of relativity with quantum mechanics. Right. Is because quantum mechanics deals with forces and gravity is an effect. Now I don't know how that equates to limitations on the speed of light and stuff. I don't claim to understand the math of that. One real quick thing. I know you're familiar with black holes. It's going to sound like a tangent, but it's really not. Are you familiar with the theory of white holes?
I am, yes.
For those who don't know, white holes are predicted by the theory of relativity, even though they've never discovered one. A white hole, where a black hole is something that the gravity is so strong, nothing can escape once it's crossed the event horizon. A white hole is something where the energy is so repellent, nothing can cross into the event horizon. My 8-year-old, who so far claims she either wants to be a microbiologist or an astrophysicist, says she wants to be the first person in the physics community to discover a white hole.
Nice. I love that. Well, tell her to be both, because I have both a biology and a physics degree, undergraduate level, of course. I'm not a doctorate in either one of those. And it's pretty cool knowing a lot about both of those things. But my passion now is, when I can't sleep at night, normally what I'm listening to are quantum theory lectures or simulation theory lectures or something. We'll have to talk about simulation theory one of these days too.
Yeah. First of all, I imagine that we've lost about half the audience, at least by now, who's like, "What the hell are they talking about?"
I can tell you, we lost half the audience when we started talking about Star Trek and Star Wars and shit like that.
Probably.
I get that all the time. Old neighbor of mine, Ron, he's like, yeah, I like this episode, but I could really do without the Star Trek talk.
First of all, I don't know if there's a cool video on YouTube called "The Future of the Universe," where it's like it's a 30-minute video. 9 minutes in, it's several trillion years in the future, and all the stars are already gone, and it goes through the rest of the universe. That kind of, it's both very mind-bending and a little depressing.
It is depressing, actually. Yeah.
But I had another mind-bending theory that, in a way, could be categorized as the multiverse, but a lot of folks, whether religious or not, I don't want to get into that, but they say that the universe started from the Big Bang, the infinitesimally small, compact, infinitely dense mass that exploded into the universe. Well, who's to say that that's the only infinite density mass that exists? Imagine something 4 quadrillion light years away. There's another Big Bang that exploded into another universe that's expanding our direction.
Right.
Or imagine that there are 100 or 1,000 of those out there expanding in all different directions and possibly bumping into each other one day. Just imagine what the effects of multiple singularities out there exploding into each other, what that could possibly represent. And let's not forget that while we're talking about black holes and the speed of light and physics and everything, normal mathematics would lead you to believe that the universe should be no more than about 27 billion light years across, because if the universe is 13.7 billion years old and nothing can move faster than the speed of light, then the universe should be no more across than 27.4 billion light years, because that would be as far as light could travel in that time frame. But they've measured the universe as somewhere around 96 billion light years across. And the reason for that is, while nothing can travel faster than the speed of light within the universe, space itself, when it expands, much like one of those weird balls that you just pull apart, space can expand as fast as it wants. Right. So either something is pushing out on the exterior, on the balloon of space, or something is pulling out on the balloon of space, and it is expanding faster than the speed of light, which is another the reason that comes back to the original point is that if the universe is expanding that rapidly, then gravity is not going to be strong enough to keep it coherent for all of eternity. Eventually, the universe is going to expand into nothingness. And there were theories years ago about gravity possibly creating a big crunch and bringing the universe back together one day, but the universe is expanding too fast for that. So right. Gravity being in effect, the boundaries of the universe are growing faster than that effect can affect things.
Right. Well, and I'm a big proponent in that gravity actually doesn't even really truly exist in our dimensions, the four dimensions, the 3 dimensions in space-time. It actually exists in the other hidden dimensions. That's where the source of gravity comes from. And like a ripple effect, like throwing a big rock into a pond, you feel the ripples, but you have no idea what the rock was. You just feel the ripples. Yep. And I truly believe that in a lot of my studies. Again, that's the source of gravity. It does not exist in the dimensions that we can navigate with our brains.
Well, this is going to come across as even nerdier than we've been talking already, but there was a great short story once to illustrate that point. To try to understand higher level dimensions, it's like a cube traveling to a sheet of paper that's a 2-dimensional world and trying to explain what a cube or a sphere is, what a 3-dimensional world looks like in 2 dimensions. And you can't do it.
The immortal novel Flatland.
Yeah, the square would not understand what a cube is because it doesn't have the reference point for the dimensions. Much like it'd be hard for us to understand. I believe in Einstein's theories, there are 10 possible dimensions. I believe there may be more than that, depending on what the mathematics eventually show. But how do you explain a 5th dimension or a 6th dimension to 4-dimensional beings like we are? And we are 4-dimensional beings because time is an additional dimension.
It is. I have a little mini library over here in my apartment, and I just wanted to. Is that going to show up? Hold on.
Not really.
Let's see. There we go.
There we go. Brian Greene.
Yes.
The Hidden Reality.
Hidden Reality, and he's also for those of you who are into such things and want somebody who's very accessible. I'm not a big. I hate to say this, but what's his name? The big black dude who has the Star Talk show, Tyson. Tyson is a celebrity. He's a
charlatan. He's a celebrity. He's making money off of his name.
That's all, and I don't particularly like him. Brian Greene is one of the most accessible people. Michio Kaku kind of started that trend. I still like me some old Michio Kaku too.
I like him too, but he has become somewhat Hollywoodized.
He has too, but Brian Greene is not, and he's very accessible. Has done some fantastic videos, documentaries. The Elegant Universe was probably my favorite book of his because it actually describes how everything is so perfectly balanced. The numbers of the universe are so perfectly balanced when you talk about strong force, nuclear force, the strong nuclear force, the weak nuclear force, electromagnetism, gravity, things like, the distance, the fact that the moon perfectly covers the sun. It's 100 times smaller than the sun at its distance, and blah, 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 blah. He gets really way into that. He's very accessible, very likable. So those of you that want to learn anything and don't have to get a physics degree, grab one of his books or just watch one of his videos. Yeah, he hasn't quite gone the Hollywood route that a lot of these guys have, which I appreciate. And yeah, I know Neil deGrasse Tyson, I actually can't fucking stand him. I used to listen to Star Talk all the time, but he's got a dude on there, Chuck Nice, the comedian, who's a complete racist. Likes to talk bad things about white people all the time on Star Talk, and he's just become a caricature of a astrophysicist who believes his own bullshit.
Yeah.
That's probably not going to be popular with people saying that because he's so likable. Yeah, he's a goofball.
Yeah, I think Brian Greene gave an interview a while back. I need to go find it again, where he said that he didn't believe in the concept of free will.
I've seen that. He's big on that too.
Yeah.
That's kind of that was kind of a big thing a few years ago too. Good old Sam, what's his face? Big podcast guy. He's an atheist meditation.
Yeah,
guru.
Sam Harris.
Sam Harris. Yeah, he's really against the whole idea of free will too. That everything's predetermined based on materialism. It's the only thing I don't like about Brian Greene. Well, I shouldn't say I don't like. I disagree with him. I like Brian Greene. He's a great educator, but he is an adamant reductionist science guy and an adamant atheist, and won't even allow the possibility. And whenever you do that kind of thing, you close your mind to that kind of thing, then I lose a little bit of respect for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, as much as I dislike some of his public policy stuff, Francis Collins, who was he's been big on the COVID stuff, which I know a lot of us don't like, director of the NIH, but also was part of the Human Genome Project, was an atheist until his mid to late 20s, and then became a Christian because he understood that the universe, there were simply too many coincidences to just write off as coincidence.
I'm sure I have the book over there somewhere. Signature of the Cell is the book that he wrote on his experiences running the Human Genome Project.
Yep.
And how elegant that DNA and all of that is, and just all the systems and how they work, that it was so elegant and so ridiculously complex yet elegant at the same time that he had no choice but to think there has to be a maestro, there has to be a craftsman. This could not have possibly fallen together accidentally.
Yep.
Yeah. So
you end up with, the concept of infinite regression, the concept of causality. It becomes, much more mind-bending stuff. I mean, I am, sorry, I don't mean to raise my arms there and blind y'all with the reflection.
The white flash there.
I am not a fundamentalist, Christian who believes in the literalness of the Bible for a lot of reasons, especially like the way it was written, the mindset it was written, and so on and so forth. But I am a big believer in God. I believe the universe is infinitely complex, and one of the things in studying it is just how elegant it is, how subtle it is in its complexity. Anyone who ever wants to see something that's mind-blowing, go Google an image of the universe where it shows the different threads and galactic clusters. Coop, I'll ask you this, you probably know. What does that look like?
Neurons. It looks like the brain.
Looks like a brain. It looks exactly like the neurons in the brain.
If you do a 3D map of the brain and the way the neurons go, the synapses and all that stuff, they look exactly the fucking same. Exactly. I had a cup of coffee in medical school there for a couple of years, so I kind of know a little bit about it, and it does. It just absolutely does.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I call the universe the brain of God, the mind of God.
It's astonishing, actually, the construction of it. It gave me shivers the first time I saw a really good 3D rendering of what, like you said, the galaxy superclusters and how things are. The universe,
the filaments going through
the Great Void. That's where somebody had an aneurysm.
Anyway,
it's interesting. I don't know how we could geeked up so badly on that, but that's all right. One quick thing to wrap up. I was going to say before we get off, but anyway,
go ahead to my phone that I hear going off.
Yeah, I'm sure my coonhound's pissed because it's outside and he's probably wet, and I kicked him out of here because he was being annoying. But anyway, we can wrap it up. Did I have something else I was going to ask you about? I guess not. So you didn't get to hear the intro music this time because I honestly was working hard trying to get the podcast from yesterday fixed before we got on today. But I think you'll like the intro and outro music, so make sure you listen to the pod, and I will get that uploaded. It's probably not going to be tonight. I think it would be rude not to upload the pod that I did with Jane yesterday.
First. Ladies first. I see how it is.
Yes. She's a. I don't know. She's a smart girl. She's fun to talk to. You've talked to her.
Very smart. Even if she thinks of me as a formula person. Oh, Jane, I'm never going to let that go.
That was my fault I brought it up, wasn't it? Or did she come up with that concept?
I don't remember.
I don't either. Yeah, she's funny. She's very nice, but she sometimes forgets to pull punches when she's talking. And it's like, wow, she just said that. That's amazing. But no, it was fun catching up with her again. And then, of course, we always love the endless ranters. Manny and our guy Christopher over there. We should get together with them pretty soon again. I always enjoy those pods with those two. And next time I have Jane on, jump on with us. We'll have to be the Beauty and the Bastards.
Maybe I can come on with like one of my T-shirts that has an equation on it. I can ask you to solve a formula.
And don't make it like PV over NRT. Don't make it something easy like E equals MC squared. Let's do Boyle's law or something like that and see if she gets it. I can't believe that just popped out of my head. I don't think I've thought about Boyle's law since I was 19 years old, but oh well. Awesome. But I can't remember where I put my fucking keys.
All right, well, folks, we've gone off the rails here. I think it's about time to end.
That's all right. That's what people like when we go off the rails. At least that's what I hear from the
good podcasting.
The two listeners of our pod that are still left. So, if you hung on to the end of this podcast and you say the secret word on our Facebook group page, Russ, what's the secret word? Anything you want. I'm just
secret word is humble.
That's a secret word for you and me.
Yeah.
Doesn't get spoken very much. Okay, and if you post the word humble to our Two Grumpy Bastards podcast page, I promise you a reward. That's all I'm going to say. A reward.
He's not committing to a reward, so he's not held to anything, out there.
That's right. Yeah, where it might be Two Grumpy Bastards podcast merchandise, or I might send you
It could be a photo of the two of us all oiled up as Chippendales.
That'd be hot, actually. That'd be. I guess I'd be Swayze and you'd be Chris Farley.
Chris Farley.
One of the funniest things that's ever happened in history. I always laugh when I watch that. Anyway, all right, buddy. It's good talking to you. I'll let you get to your family and your meetings and, having to rake up after your wife out there. So
awesome. All right. Take care, everyone.
All right. Thanks, buddy.